Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into the wild story of Zepto. You know, the company that promised to get your groceries to you in just 10 minutes? Well, that crazy promise ended up building a billion-dollar empire. So the real question is, how on earth did two college dropouts manage to take a simple frustration during the pandemic and spin it into a multi-billion-dollar company in just a few years? It's a story of unbelievable speed, some really smart pivots, and just massive ambition. Let's get into it. All right, here's how we're going to break it down. We'll start at the very beginning with how the pandemic sparked the whole idea. Then we'll look at their first shot at it, a business called Cart, and why it didn't quite work out. After that, we'll get to the game changer, the dark store revolution. From there, we'll see how they built the tech engine to make 10-minute delivery a reality, the massive problems that came with growing so fast, and finally, their big push toward actually making a profit. So our story kicks off in 2020. The whole world is basically on pause, and this global crisis creates a very, very local problem for pretty much everyone. So picture this. Ada Palicha and Kaivalya Vora are back home in Mumbai, forced to leave Stanford because of the pandemic. And just like millions of other people, they're realizing getting groceries is a nightmare. Deliveries are taking days, sometimes weeks, and get this, a staggering 79% of orders were either late or just flat out canceled. So what do? They start a simple little WhatsApp group for their neighbors, and it just explodes. It got so popular so fast that they hit the 256-member limit almost immediately. And right there, that was all the proof they needed that they had stumbled onto a massive unmet need. So that leads them to their first official venture, Cart. Let's take a look at how they tried to turn that little neighborhood experiment into a proper business. The idea seemed pretty straightforward, right? They decided to partner up with existing local convenience stores. You know, the Kiranas. A customer places an order, it gets sent to the closest shop, a delivery person picks it up, and boom, it's at your door in about 30 to 45 minutes. The beauty of it was that they were just using the infrastructure that was already there. And you know what? It looked promising enough that people with money started to notice. In early 2021, they actually raised their first round of funding, which put the company's value at a cool $2.5 million, a pretty solid vote of confidence. But as soon as lockdown started to lift, some major cracks started to show in this model. The biggest problem? They had zero control. No control over what was in stock, no control over quality, so if you had a bad experience, you blamed them, not the local store. Plus, the profits were razor thin. And here's the real kicker. Once people could leave their homes again, why wait 45 minutes for a delivery when you could just walk to the store and be back in 10? The business was in serious trouble. So they're facing a dead end. But then they get a piece of advice that would completely flip their business on its head and set them up for some absolutely explosive growth. Now, what's so incredible here is just how bold this advice from Sufir Sujan was. I mean, he didn't just say, hey, maybe you should tweak your model. No. He basically said, throw it out, start over from scratch. He told them the only way to be both super fast and profitable was to own the entire process themselves. And this is the solution they landed on, the dark store. It's a brilliant concept, really. It's not a regular store you can walk into. Think of it more like a mini warehouse, strategically placed in a dense neighborhood, and it's packed with only the most popular items for that specific area. It's designed for one thing and one thing only. Getting online orders out the door fast. So this is the key. This is the pivot. They went from a model where they controlled basically nothing to a model where they controlled everything. The inventory, the packing, the whole supply chain. This was the only way they could even dream of making that crazy 10-minute delivery promise a reality. So, with this new vision, they rebranded from Cart to Zepto, which is named after the smallest possible unit of time, by the way. Now they just needed two things to build it: a whole lot of money and some seriously smart tech. And boy, did they get it. In late 2021, they landed a massive $60 million funding round. That cash injection sent their valuation soaring and gave them the firepower they needed to start building out this network of dark stores all across India's biggest cities. But you know, money was only half the battle. They built this incredibly sophisticated tech platform to squeeze every bit of efficiency out of every step. We're talking AI-powered logistics, smart routing to find the fastest path for every delivery rider, and even predictive analytics that could guess what you might order before you even knew you wanted it. This tech was the real engine behind the speed.
and the results were just stunning. Their average delivery time actually dropped to under 9 minutes. They were beating their own 10-minute promise. This tech-heavy approach also made things way more efficient, leading to 30% faster deliveries and cutting costs by about 20%. They had officially cracked the code.
This incredible success basically launched them into the stratosphere, earning them that coveted unicorn status. But with that kind of crazy hypergrowth came a whole new set of very real, very difficult problems. I mean, just take a second and look at this climb. From $225 million to $1.4 billion in less than 2 years. They became India's very first unicorn of 2023. This is the kind of insane growth trajectory that Silicon Valley dreams are made of. But this right here shows the classic startup dilemma. While their revenue was exploding, over 4,400 crore rupees, their losses were also massive, over 1,200 crore. This is what happens when you follow that growth at all costs playbook, a strategy that, frankly, investors were starting to get really nervous about all over the tech world. And it wasn't just about burning cash. Suddenly, a major competitor, Blinkit, jumped into the quick commerce game. They got tangled up in a nasty legal battle over equity with someone who was there at the very beginning. They also learned the hard way that not every idea is a winner. They had to shut down experiments like Zepto cafes and medicine delivery. Plus, they realized that some of their new dark stores just weren't making any money. So after this whirlwind of massive growth and trying a bunch of different things, Zepto made a really important decision. It was time to get back to basics and focus on the one thing that made them successful to begin with. And that focus, it paid off in a big way. By really zeroing in on their core grocery delivery business and making their operations as efficient as possible, they achieved just phenomenal revenue growth. They more than doubled it year over year, and they're projected to grow another 150% in the next fiscal year. Just incredible numbers. So where does that leave them today? Well, they're running this huge network of over 900 dark stores and delivering something like 150,000 orders every single day. And what's next? They're aiming for an IPO in 2026. But that core challenge, the one that's going to define their future, is still there. Finding that perfect balance between insane growth and actual sustainable profitability. Look, they absolutely proved they could master speed, but the multi-billion-dollar question that's still hanging in the air is whether they can master profitability. And that's a question that's going to define not just Zepto's future, but the future of an entire generation of tech startups that are now being forced to shift their focus from just growing fast to building real long-term value.